I think I didn't do anything wrong, just smiled for a silly photo at a party. Now I'm sitting here staring at divorce papers. Maybe he overreacted, but everyone is taking his side, and I'm left wondering how one picture could ruin everything. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Lysandra Quill, and I'm 32 years old. I work as an office administrator at a small accounting firm downtown. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills. My husband Marcus is 35, an IT specialist who spends most of his time buried in computer screens and server maintenance. We've been married for 8 years, have a beautiful 6-year-old daughter named Chloe, and until 3 months ago, I thought we had a pretty normal life. It all started at Rebecca's birthday party. Rebecca is my younger sister, 28 and still single, always telling me I need to live a little and stop being so domestic. She rented out this trendy downtown bar for her celebration, invited all her gym friends and co-workers. I was excited to get dressed up, put on makeup, feel like more than just a mom and office worker for one night. Marcus came along reluctantly. He's never been much for parties, prefers quiet evenings at home with Chloe and me. But Rebecca had been planning this for months, and family is family. We dropped Chloe off at Marcus's parents' house. His mother Anita always loved having her granddaughter over, and his father Tom would read her bedtime stories. The party was loud, crowded, full of people I barely knew. Rebecca introduced me to everyone as her boring married sister, which stung a little, but I laughed it off. That's when I met Julian Brandt. Julian was 29, worked in marketing, had this easy smile and confident way of talking that made you feel like the most interesting person in the room. He complimented my dress, said I looked too young to have a 6-year-old daughter, asked if I worked out because I had great energy. The attention felt good, really good. Marcus noticed Julian talking to me and came over, put his arm around my waist in that possessive way husbands do. Julian didn't seem bothered, just smiled and shook Marcus's hand, said he was lucky to have such a beautiful wife. Marcus smiled back, but I could see the tension in his jaw. As the night went on, Julian kept finding reasons to talk to me. He'd bring me drinks, ask about my job, tell funny stories about his marketing campaigns. Rebecca encouraged it, said it was harmless flirting and Marcus needed to lighten up. When Marcus tried to stay close, I told him he was being clingy, that I could handle myself at a party. Then came the photo. Rebecca wanted group pictures for her social media. Everyone was drunk, laughing, posing in different combinations. Julian somehow ended up next to me in one shot, his hand resting on my thigh just above my knee. It happened so fast. Rebecca counted down. 3, 2, 1, and I smiled big for the camera. Marcus saw it happen. I caught his expression in my peripheral vision, the way his face went completely still. But Julian's hand felt warm, and the attention felt intoxicating, and I told myself it was just a silly party photo. No big deal. Really? Marcus said quietly when Julian walked away to get another drink. You're okay with that? With what? I played innocent, even though my heart was racing. It's just a photo, Marcus. Don't be so uptight. He stared at me for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. I watched him save the photo from Rebecca's Instagram story, screenshot it. The way he did it so methodically, so calmly, should have worried me. Instead, I felt annoyed. Are you seriously going to make a thing out of this? I asked. I'm not making anything out of anything, he said. I'm just saving a memory. The ride home was silent. Chloe was already asleep when we picked her up from Marcus's parents, so she didn't notice the tension. But Anita did. She gave me a look I couldn't quite read, something between disappointment and warning. That night, Marcus asked me about Julian while we were getting ready for bed. How long have you known him? I met him tonight. He's just some friend of Rebecca's. He seemed pretty comfortable with you for someone you just met. I rolled my eyes, started removing my makeup with more force than necessary. God, Marcus, you're being paranoid. It was a party. People were having fun. Remember fun? He didn't respond, just brushed his teeth and went to bed. I stayed up scrolling through Rebecca's photos from the party, looking at that picture of Julian and me. His hand on my thigh, my bright smile, the way we looked together. I told myself Marcus was overreacting, but deep down, I knew something had shifted. The next few weeks were tense. Marcus started asking questions about my schedule, my phone, my gym routine. I joined the same fitness center where Rebecca worked out, and it turned out Julian went there too. We'd run into each other sometimes, chat by the water fountain or between sets. He was easy to talk to, made me laugh, remembered details about our conversations. When Marcus asked about my late gym sessions, I told him I was taking a new class. When he noticed me texting more often, I said it was work stuff or Rebecca drama. When he saw Julian's name pop up on my phone screen, I said he was asking about workout routines for his sister. All technically true, but not the whole truth. Julian had started texting me after we exchanged numbers for workout tips. The messages began innocently enough: gym schedules, protein shake recipes, funny memes. But gradually they became more personal. He'd ask about my day, compliment photos I posted, send good morning messages that made me smile. I knew it was inappropriate. I knew I was crossing lines. But it felt so good to have someone interested in me, as more than just Marcus's wife or Chloe's mum. Julian saw me as Lysandra, the woman, not just the role I played in everyone else's life. Marcus found the text thread 3 weeks after Rebecca's party. I was in the shower when I heard him call my name. Not angry, just careful. I wrapped a towel around myself and found him sitting on our bed, holding my phone. "Julian's been texting you a lot," he said. My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to stay calm. "So? Good morning, beautiful. Can't wait to see you at the gym today. You looked amazing in that blue top yesterday." Marcus read from my phone in a flat voice. "This is what workout partners text each other?" "You went through my phone?" I grabbed for it, but he pulled it away. It was buzzing on the nightstand. The messages were right there on the lock screen. "That's still a violation of my privacy, Marcus." He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "Your privacy?" "Lysandra, we're married. We have a daughter together. Some guy is sending you flirty messages and you're worried about privacy." I sat down on the bed, tried to look hurt instead of guilty. "They're not flirty. Julian's just friendly. You're reading things into innocent messages because you've been paranoid ever since Rebecca's party." "Innocent?" Marcus scrolled through more messages. "He calls you beautiful. He says he thinks about you during his workouts. He asked if you were happy in your marriage." That last one made my cheeks burn. Julian had asked that question 2 days ago, and I'd deflected with a joke instead of shutting it down completely. "I never responded inappropriately," I said, which was mostly true. "But you didn't shut it down either." I stood up, started getting dressed with sharp, angry movements. "I can't help what other people text me, Marcus. I'm not responsible for Julian's feelings. But you are responsible for encouraging them." "I haven't encouraged anything." "Then why is he still texting you? Why haven't you told him you're not interested?" "Because I was interested. Because his attention made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Because being desired felt better than being taken for granted. But I couldn't say that to Marcus. "This is ridiculous," I said instead. "You're making a huge deal out of nothing. Julian is barely even a friend." Marcus set my phone down on the nightstand, looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Disappointed, tired, like he was seeing me clearly for the first time, and didn't like what he found. "Okay," he said quietly. "If you say so." That should have been the end of it. I should have blocked Julian's number, found a new gym, focused on my marriage. Instead, I felt angry that Marcus didn't trust me, resentful that he was trying to control who I could talk to. So I kept texting Julian. more carefully now, deleting conversations and using a messaging app Marcus didn't know about. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong, just maintaining a friendship with someone who appreciated me. Julian suggested we meet for coffee to discuss workout plans. I said yes. We met at a little cafe near the gym on a Tuesday afternoon. I told Marcus I had to work late, which was becoming a more frequent excuse. Julian was waiting at a corner table, smiled when he saw me, stood up to hug me hello. The hug lasted a few seconds too long, his hand lingering on my lower back. "You look incredible," he said, and I felt that familiar rush of validation. We talked for 2 hours, about our jobs, our goals, our frustrations. Julian was a good listener, asked thoughtful questions, made me feel interesting and complex. When I mentioned feeling unappreciated at home, he said Marcus was crazy not to worship someone like me every day. "You deserve better," he said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "You deserve to be cherished." I should have pulled my hand away. Instead, I let him trace circles on my palm while he talked about how beautiful and intelligent and undervalued I was. It felt like being seen for the first time in years. We started meeting regularly. Coffee dates became lunch dates, became long conversations in his car after the gym. Julian was patient, never pushing too hard, just gradually becoming more important to my daily happiness. I looked forward to his messages, planned my outfits around seeing him, found excuses to extend our time together. Marcus noticed the changes. I was happier, more energetic, spent more time on my appearance. I told him I was feeling better about myself because of my new fitness routine. Technically true, but not the real reason. The breaking point came at Marcus's parents' house during their monthly family barbecue. Anita and Tom lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, had a big backyard, perfect for family gatherings. Chloe loved these visits. She could run around with her cousin Lila, eat too much ice cream, convince Grandpa Tom to push her on the tire swing until she got dizzy. I was distracted that day, thinking about Julian. He'd sent me a particularly sweet message that morning, said he was falling for me and wanted to know if I felt the same way. I hadn't responded yet, wasn't sure how to navigate that conversation. Marcus was quiet during the drive over, had been quiet for days actually. I assumed he was still sulking about the Julian situation, even though I'd told him repeatedly there was nothing to worry about. Rebecca came to the barbecue too, brought her latest boyfriend, a guy named Derek who worked in construction. She made a point of sitting next to me at the picnic table, asking loudly how things were going with my gym friend. "What gym friend?" Anita asked, looking between Rebecca and me. "Oh, just this guy Lysandra met at her fitness center," Rebecca said, with a knowing smile. "He's been very motivational." I felt my face flush. "Julian's just a workout partner. It's not a big deal." "Julian," Tom repeated. "That's the young man from the party photo." Marcus looked up from his burger. "You showed them the photo?" "I was showing Mum pictures from Rebecca's birthday," I said quickly. "It's not like I was hiding anything." But Anita's expression suggested she'd drawn her own conclusions about that photo. She'd raised 3 sons, knew the difference between innocent and inappropriate. "Where's this Julian from?" she asked in that deceptively casual way mothers-in-law have. "I don't know, Mum," Marcus answered before I could. "Lysandra doesn't talk about him much, despite texting with him constantly." "I do not text with him constantly," I snapped. "Your phone buzzes every 10 minutes. "That could be anyone." "But it's usually him, isn't it?" Rebecca jumped in before I could answer. "Marcus, you're being ridiculous. Lysandra's allowed to have friends. Just because you're insecure doesn't mean she has to live like a nun." The table went silent. Even Derek looked uncomfortable. "Insecure?" Marcus repeated slowly. "Yeah, insecure. Getting jealous over some innocent friendship, going through her phone, interrogating her about her schedule. That's controlling behavior." I should have defended Marcus, should have told Rebecca she was out of line. Instead, I felt grateful that someone was taking my side. Rebecca's right, I said. I haven't done anything wrong. Julian's just a friend, and even if he wasn't, I'm an adult who can handle her own relationships. The words came out sharper than I intended. Marcus stared at me across the table, and I saw something break in his expression. Even if he wasn't just a friend, he repeated quietly. I realized my mistake immediately. That's not what I meant. I just meant hypothetically. No, I think you meant exactly what you said. Marcus stood up from the table, walked toward the house. I started to follow him, but Anita caught my arm. Let him go, she said firmly. You've said enough. I haven't done anything wrong, I protested. Haven't you? Tom tried to smooth things over, suggested we change the subject, asked Derek about his construction projects. But the damage was done. Chloe had stopped playing, was watching the adults with worried eyes. Lila had disappeared into the house. I found Marcus in Tom's home office, sitting at the desk with his phone in his hand. What are you doing? Making a call, he said without looking up. To who? My lawyer. My blood went cold. Your lawyer? Marcus, you're being dramatic. We had one little argument. This isn't about one argument, Lysandra. This is about months of lies, months of you choosing another man over your family. I haven't chosen anyone over anyone. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were completely calm. That scared me more than if he'd been yelling. Then block his number, right now. Delete his contact, block him on social media, find a new gym, choose your marriage. I opened my mouth to agree, to say of course I would, that Julian meant nothing to me. But the words wouldn't come. The thought of cutting Julian out of my life completely felt like losing a piece of myself. Marcus saw my hesitation and nodded slowly. That's what I thought, he said, and dialed his lawyer's number. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Marcus moved into the guest bedroom, spoke to me only about Chloe or household logistics. He was polite, civil, completely distant. Like I was a roommate he barely tolerated. I tried to explain, tried to make him understand that Julian was just a friend who made me feel good about myself. But every conversation ended the same way, with Marcus asking if I'd blocked Julian's number, and me making excuses about why I hadn't yet, because I couldn't. Julian had become my escape from the tension at home, the one bright spot in increasingly dark days. When Marcus was cold and distant, Julian was warm and understanding. When I felt like a failure as a wife, Julian reminded me I was beautiful and desirable. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was destroying my marriage, but I couldn't stop. Julian suggested we meet at a hotel bar to talk somewhere private. I knew what that meant, knew where it would lead. I also knew I was going to say yes. The hotel was downtown, upscale, the kind of place where married women could meet men who weren't their husbands without running into neighbors. Julian had booked a room, just in case, he said, no pressure. We sat in the bar for an hour, drinking wine and talking about how complicated everything was. Julian held my hand across the table, told me he was falling in love with me, that he'd never felt this way about anyone before. I know you're married, he said. I know this is complicated, but what we have is special, Lysandra. Don't you feel it too? I did feel it. The connection, the chemistry, the way he looked at me like I was the most amazing woman in the world. It was intoxicating. I do, I whispered. Then come upstairs with me. Just to talk. Just to be somewhere we can be ourselves without worrying about anyone else. I knew it wouldn't be just talking. I also knew I was going to go. The elevator ride felt like the longest minute of my life. Julian's hand was warm in mine, his cologne making me dizzy. When the doors opened on the 7th floor, I followed him down the hallway to room 712. He opened the door, let me walk in first. The room was beautiful. King bed with white linens, city view, bottle of champagne chilling in an ice bucket. You planned this, I said. I hoped, he admitted. But if you want to leave, we can leave. I won't pressure you into anything you don't want. But I did want it. I wanted to feel desired, wanted to feel like someone's first choice instead of their obligation. I wanted to forget about Marcus's disappointed face and divorce papers and the mess I'd made of everything. Julian kissed me, soft and gentle at first, then deeper when I didn't pull away. His hands tangled in my hair, and I forgot about everything, except how good it felt to be wanted. We made love slowly, carefully, like we had all the time in the world. Julian whispered how beautiful I was, how long he'd wanted this, how perfect we were together. For 2 hours, I felt like the woman I used to be before marriage and motherhood and routine made me invisible. Afterward, lying in his arms, I felt guilty and exhilarated and terrified all at once. "I love you," Julian said, tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. "I love you too," I whispered back, and meant it. We met at the hotel 3 more times over the next 2 weeks. Each time, I told myself it would be the last time, that I needed to end things and fight for my marriage. Each time, Julian's touch and attention made me forget my good intentions. Marcus knew. I could see it in the way he looked at me, the careful distance he maintained, the methodical way he'd started organizing our financial documents. But he didn't confront me directly, didn't scream or throw accusations. He just watched and waited and documented everything. The end came on a Thursday evening. I was making dinner while Chloe played in the living room, pretending everything was normal. Marcus came home from work carrying a manila folder and a voice recorder. "We need to talk," he said quietly. My hand started shaking. About what? About Julian, about the hotel, about the lies. He knew. Somehow, he knew everything. Marcus opened the folder, spread out photographs and printed documents across the kitchen table. Pictures of me entering the hotel with Julian, credit card statements showing charges at the hotel bar, phone records showing deleted calls and messages. "How did you—" "Private investigator," Marcus said simply. "I hired him 3 weeks ago." I stared at the evidence of my betrayal laid out like an autopsy report. There was no denying it, no explaining it away. "Marcus, I can explain." "Don't." His voice was calm, final. "Don't lie to me anymore, Lysandra. We're past that now." Chloe wandered into the kitchen, saw the papers spread across the table, sensed the tension between her parents. "What's wrong?" she asked in a small voice. Marcus scooped her up, held her close. "Nothing for you to worry about, sweetheart. Why don't you go watch TV while Mommy and Daddy talk?" After Chloe left, Marcus sat down across from me at the table. "I've filed for divorce," he said. "I'm asking for primary custody of Chloe and division of assets according to the prenup your father insisted we sign." The prenup. I'd forgotten about that document, signed it without reading it carefully because I never thought we'd get divorced. But Marcus's family had money, and my father had been practical about protecting both sides. "You can't take Chloe away from me," I said, panic rising in my voice. "I'm not taking her away. You'll have visitation rights, but I won't have her living primarily with someone who lies and cheats and puts her own desires above her family's well-being. I made a mistake, Marcus. I can fix this. I can end things with Julian. We can go to counseling. You made a choice, Lysandra. Multiple choices, over multiple months. This wasn't a mistake. This was a decision." He was right, and we both knew it. "What about Julian?" Marcus asked. "Have you told him about the divorce papers?" I hadn't. In fact, Julian had been distant lately, cancelling our hotel meetings, taking longer to respond to texts. The thrill of the affair was wearing off for him, I could tell. "He loves me," I said weakly. Marcus almost smiled. "Does he? Because according to my investigator, Julian's been seeing at least 2 other married women from your gym. You're not special to him, Lysandra. You're just convenient." The words hit me like a physical blow. I thought about Julian's sweet messages, his declarations of love, the way he made me feel chosen. Had it all been a game to him? "That's not true," I whispered. Marcus pulled out his phone, showed me a screenshot from Julian's social media. A photo of him with a blonde woman, kissing her cheek, captioned, "Date night with my amazing girlfriend Sarah." Posted 2 days ago. The same day, Julian had told me he loved me and wanted to build a future together. I felt physically sick. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," Marcus said, and he actually sounded sorry. "But I thought you should know what kind of man you threw our marriage away for." The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Marcus had been thorough, documented everything, built an airtight case. I tried to fight it, hired my own lawyer, claimed Marcus was being vindictive and unreasonable. But the evidence was overwhelming. The affair, the lies, the way I'd prioritized Julian over my family. Even my own lawyer suggested I accept Marcus's terms rather than risk a more public trial. Julian disappeared completely once he learned about the divorce. Blocked my number, avoided the gym, acted like our relationship had never happened. Sarah, his amazing girlfriend, had no idea about me or the other women. I thought about telling her, but what was the point? She'd find out eventually, the way I had. Rebecca tried to support me, said Marcus was being cruel and controlling, that I deserved happiness. But even she seemed less convinced as the details came out. The hotel meetings, the lies to Chloe, the way I defended Julian at family gatherings while tearing down my husband. Anita and Tom were polite but distant when I came to pick up Chloe for my weekend visits. They loved their granddaughter, would never use her as a weapon, but their disappointment in me was obvious. The hardest part was explaining to Chloe why Mommy and Daddy didn't live together anymore. She was 6, old enough to know something was wrong, but too young to understand the complexities of adult relationships. "Did you stop loving Daddy?" she asked one night during my visitation weekend. I wanted to say no, wanted to tell her that love was complicated and sometimes people made mistakes. But sitting in my small apartment, looking at my daughter's confused face, I realized the truth was simpler and more devastating. I had stopped loving Marcus somewhere along the way. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually. I'd stopped seeing him as a partner and started seeing him as an obstacle to my happiness. I'd stopped appreciating his steady presence and started resenting his expectations. Julian hadn't destroyed my marriage. He'd just been the catalyst for something that was already broken. Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices, I told Chloe, and sometimes those choices hurt people we love. "Are you sorry?" she asked. I was. Sorry for the lies, sorry for the betrayal, sorry for the way I'd blown up our family for a fantasy that was never real. But mostly, I was sorry that I'd become someone I didn't recognize, someone who could justify hurting the people who loved her most. "Yes, baby, I'm very sorry." 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Marcus at Chloe's school play. He looked good, healthier, more relaxed, like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He was dating someone new, a teacher from Chloe's school named Jennifer. Chloe adored her, talked about Miss Jennifer constantly during our visits. I felt a stab of jealousy, watching Marcus smile at Jennifer the way he used to smile at me. But more than jealousy, I felt regret. Not for losing Marcus specifically, but for losing the life we'd built together, the family we'd created, the future we'd planned. After the play, Marcus approached me in the parking lot. "How are you doing, Lysandra?" "Fine," I lied. "Good, really good." He nodded, didn't push. We'd developed a civil relationship for Chloe's sake, kept our interactions brief and focused on our daughter. "She's happy," he said, nodding toward Chloe, who was showing Jennifer her costume. "That's what matters." "Yeah, she is." Marcus started to walk away, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope it was worth it." There was no anger in his voice, no bitterness, just genuine curiosity about whether I'd achieved whatever I thought I was chasing when I destroyed our marriage. I wanted to tell him it wasn't worth it, that I'd given up everything real for something that was never there. But Marcus had moved on, built a new life, found someone who appreciated what he had to offer. My regrets were my own burden to carry. "Take care of yourself, Lysandra," he said, and walked away. I stood in the parking lot for a long time after they left, watching other families load their children into cars, go home to houses full of love and laughter and the comfortable chaos of family life. I'd had that once. I'd thrown it away for a man who saw me as a conquest, for attention that felt good in the moment, but left me emptier than before. I'd convinced myself I deserved better than Marcus's steady love, Chloe's unconditional devotion, a life built on trust and partnership. Now I know better. I know that what I had was precious, irreplaceable, worth fighting for instead of against. I know that the grass isn't greener on the other side. It's just different grass, and it dies just as easily when you don't tend to it properly. But knowing doesn't change anything. Marcus has moved on, Chloe is adjusting to her new reality, and I'm learning to live with the consequences of my choices. Sometimes I wonder, what would have happened if I'd deleted Julian's number that first night? If I'd chosen my marriage over my ego? If I'd remembered that love isn't just a feeling, but a decision you make every day? But that's not the story I lived. This is the story I lived, the story of a woman who had everything and threw it away for nothing, who learned too late that some mistakes can't be undone, some trust can't be rebuilt, some chances don't come twice. I smile in photos now, but they're different smiles. Sadder, wiser, lonelier. The smile of someone who knows exactly what she lost and exactly what she'll never get back.